Hey guys, welcome to Module 3, or actually, Module, is it 3? Yeah, Module 3. Jeez, time's going by pretty quick. So we're going to talk about SQL commands this week. As you see here in Module Overview, we're going to learn about how to create a database table, copying an existing table to another table, deleting of a table. We'll talk about different ways of deleting a table, inserting data, updating data, deleting multiple rows. We'll get into multiple chapters within this lecture. Within this module, we'll get into summary queries, differences between having and where, talk about the rollup clause, and so forth. So this week is, and if you want to get more information on this week, you can go out to courses here, and you'll see courses, and database. It's just a little bit different because this is based off the full term. But if you go into SQL commands, right here, you can get information on SQL commands. If you go back into summaries and subqueries, we're going to talk about summaries this week. We'll talk a little bit about that there. So I've split the subqueries out of this. So anyway, so it'll be like this will be a lecture slash what do you call it? Lab. The other aspect of the assignment information this week talks about the learning resources. I can't talk. It's 8:41 in the morning. Anyways, talks about the chapters. Summary. You know how to create a summary. Same thing as each previous week. Assignment is two assignments. You'll page 164 and 65. There's questions 1 through 9. That's the one aspect of it, the SQL commands, and then the other part of it is 196 to 198, and so there's 18 questions this week, and they are relevant to both chapters. And we'll go through everything that we learned in the class will be based off the homework assignment. Okay. All right. Let's see here. Quiz. So there's a quiz, and then there's a discussion. Create a database in the MySQL Workbench. Create 3 tables of your preference. Add data to the tables and discuss. In your initial post, with screenshots of your tables and what you've developed matches relational database. Well, at this point, I'm not really concerned about you creating a relational database. So I'm just looking for you to create 3 tables of your choosing in your Workbench, and we'll talk about how to do that toward the end of this lab. Okay? So, first things first. So we talked about what we're going to talk about. So we'll talk about the first thing is the syntax of creating a table as statement. So what is an as statement? So anytime that you use an as statement, so let's say for example, I'm going to query some information here. So let's say vendors, for example, and I have columns. So let's say I can increase this just to give an example. So as is when you're changing the name of something. So let's say I do select vendor name, and let's say I just want to get his state, or she state, her state, from the name of the tech will be vendors, and we'll say we're using the AP database. Okay, so if I run this, I get my data, right? And as you see here, I have the vendor name. Let's say I want to change that as. I could do a space as and just call it vendor. And then, simple as that. And same with state. I could do as state. So now if I run my query, you'll see 2 different column names. You see here, vendor and state. That's as. So anytime you use the as, you could say, I'm going to use a different alias. Okay? So we'll call that lesson number 1. Using an as statement. That's all that is. All right, so another thing that we'll talk about is create a complete copy of one table as another table. All right, so sometimes we like to create backups. So I always tell students, and this is actually real purpose stuff. So if I'm working in the environment when I worked as a DBA, and I was going to make some modifications, obviously I'd be working in a staging environment first, but I'd always make a backup copy of the table I was going to work on. So lesson 2 always make a backup. And how would you do that? Alright, so it's pretty simple. You would do a create table. And it's interesting because I'll show you an example. So most of my background is in SQL Server, and they do it differently. And I'll show you how they do it. It won't work in here, but I'll show you. Syntax is a little different. So I would do create table, and then I would put the name of my new table. So we'll say vendors backup. Okay. I would type in as, and then I would do a select all from vendors. Simple as that. So now if I run this table right here, execute it, it might show it executed here somewhere. Alright, so it showed it, execute it. Now if I go over to my table, I created vendors backup, so I need to do a refresh here. And there you go, vendors backup. Now, what you could do to analyze it and make sure it's right, you could do a select counts from vendors, and then see what your row is, see how many records you have, because you want to make sure they match. You have 122. So let's make sure that it is the same. $122. Always compare counts between the backup and the original copy. So you want to make sure the numbers are the same. Perfect. So you want to verify numbers are the same. So that's how you would do it there. Now, if I was doing SQL Server, which like I said, this doesn't work, all you have to do is say select all into new table from old table. That's simple. I think it's easier. It's almost this, but now you get MySQL is different. Which I tried that, it doesn't work. I don't like that. Anyways, all right. Let's say that you wanted to create a partial copy of a table. So what would we consider a partial copy of a table? So let's go and do a query on vendors again. Select all from vendors. All right. So let's sort on states. All right. So we see we have 3 records from Arizona. With 3 records from Massachusetts. All right, with 2 from Pennsylvania, and some from Ohio. So let's say that we only want to grab customers from Ohio. How would we do that? Well, we do all from vendors, and then we say where state equals Ohio, just like that, and run it. There we go. We have 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 records, whatever the case is. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 7 records, 1, 8, which is null. Alright. So if we want to create a partial table, we would say create table, and we'd say vendors partial, and maybe states, and then do as, and then you would run this statement right here where you only get a partial view of it. So if I create my table, it runs it down here. I come over here and refresh. I have partial states. If I do partial states, it's only going to give me the records that we did. See what we did here? We just did only these records and then created a partial view of it. So that is how you create a partial view. And then you run this count based off the same thing here as well. Alright, moving on. Alright, table with summary rows from invoices. So if let's see, if you had a table with summary rows, it's when you summarize values. So let's go to invoices would be going. Alright, so summaries. So let's do select all from invoices. Just to see what we got here. Alright, so you see all this data. Anything with numbers in it, you can do a summary on. So let's do this. Let's create some data. So let's do our create table, and we'll call it invoice. Excuse me. Invoices. Let's call it something else. Summary. Sheet on the back are called total invoice summary. Perfect. And we'll do as, and then we'll come down here and do our statement. So we'll say select, and we want to select. What do we want to select here? We want to select the invoice number. I think the invoice number is going to be. Let's do this real quick. Vendor ID has 3 records, so we don't want to select that one because let's do this. Let's do order by invoice number. I want to see because if I do this wrong and have dupes, I won't be able to get what I want. So what I'm trying to do is we're going to do a query, but we need to make sure that. Take that out for a second. It doesn't allow me to do ascending order. Oh, hold on. Yeah, I should have done that. Okay, this is the second word. And, oh, you know what? Yeah, invoice number. It should allow me to order by invoice number. Alright, that's fine. We'll do it this way. There we go. I'm looking for duplicates, and they all seem to be unique, which is good. That's what we want. Alright. So, I had it up there. There we go. Alright, so there we go. Alright, I gotta make sure that's right. Alright, so create total invoices as select invoice number. So we want to have that there. And then we want to do a summary. So this is like Excel stuff. So if you remember, if you've ever worked with Excel, which I think we all have at some point. So if you went in Excel and you had, say, 345, and that you would do equal sum A1 through A2. And there's your summary. Well, this is pretty much the same. So think of it that way. So you use a function. So it's sum, imagine that. And then you would put name, which, let me see what I have here. Invoice total. So you want to do anything with money or a number. But in our case, we're going to do invoice total. And then we're going to do as, we'll say total. Total invoice. Let's go. And then we'll do a sum on payment total. And we'll say total paid. And lastly, we'll do a comma here. We'll do sum on credit total as total credit. And that's it. And then we'll do from our table, which is invoices, right? Yeah. And that's it. So, you know what? We could even get a little bit more crazier. well, we'll save the crazy for later. So we're just going to say, hey, give us a list of everything for now. Okay, so we run this query, execute it, creates our table. So now if we come down here and refresh, total, okay, here it is. So if we run this, you can right click on it and it gives you everything. So what it did here is it gave us everything. Because we didn't ask for specific, we asked for absolutely everything. So when you do a, don't let that, close this table. What we did here is we said select invoice, and what it does when you do a sum, it's going to sum everything up. It shows that we have a total of $214,126.76 that we've totally invoiced, and it's showing us that we have $178,410 paid, and then we have a total credit of $36.95. So what we can do here is we can take this down to another table. So let's do this. Let's create a secondary table. So let's say create table. Total. What we'll do here in this one, we'll take the total paid, total invoice minus total paid equals new amount, and then we'll add the credit and see where we're at. Let's see how much this, because we have this invoice and this is how much it's paid, and then we'll come up with a new total. That's what we're trying to do. So there's obviously different ways of doing this. You could do it, but let's say that we wanted to have a table. So we could say total paid as, we could do select, and in this case we don't really have to do sum on this because we already have that information done. So we'll do invoice number. Actually we don't even need to do that, so let's just do this. Let's do total invoice minus total paid plus total credit as payments, payment due amount, and then we'll do from, and we'll do this new table right here. Just like that. So let's run it. Here's our new query table is this. And if we run this right here, there you go. So we have our new amount. Alright, so that is how we do that. So let's move on to deleting a table, because now we have a good table to delete with this one right here, total amount, total paid. Alright, so let's purge table. So we'll do delete table, and then you put the name of your table, we'll call it total paid, and just like that. So let's make sure it's there real quick, because we know total paid is there. There's going to be a little trick to this. Hit purge. Uh-oh, you have an error message. Oh boy. Corresponds to MySQL version. Check the manual corresponds to MySQL. So it doesn't like something. So let me copy the row and see what it's telling, what it's barking about. So paste it. Check manual corresponds to version, right syntax used in a table. Total paid. Well, one thing I wanted to tell you before you delete a table, you need to go to your MySQL preferences, and I know that I have this selected, I think, but I could be wrong. You want to go to query, is it query editor? Let me think. Yeah, put SQL editor, scroll all the way to the bottom, make sure that you have this unchecked. If you have it checked, it will not even let you do a delete. Now you see we don't have it checked, so we're good. So make sure you have that unchecked. But it's bark. Oh, you know why? I did it wrong. I can't delete table. I have to drop table. Okay, so do drop table. See that? And if I run that, if I wanted to delete from table, that'd be one thing. I want to drop the table. So when I did that, notice it refreshed. Perfect. That's how you purge a table, or I think I should say drop a table. Alright, moving on, guys and ladies. Alright, so we're going to get into insert statements. What is an insert statement? And that'll actually be on page 196. That is question number, or not 196, I think it's, let me look at your homework assignment. Go back. It is 164. Excuse me. I think what I'll do is I'll help you do one of your homework assignments, at least one of the questions. Yeah, that is actually question number 1 on page 164 is an insert statement. So looking at the homework assignment, on 164, the first question is the insert statement. The second thing that you're going to do is an update statement. We'll talk about that. The third thing is you're going to do a delete statement that deletes the row that you added. So we'll show you how to do a delete statement. Number 4 is an insert statement. 5 is insert. 6 is an update. 7 is an update. 8 is an update. And 9 is a delete. So all these things that we talk about will be things that you'll work on this assignment. So let me move on here. So we'll talk about how to insert data into a column. Insert. So you can do a couple things when you insert data. You could do a. You'll want to identify. We'll talk about recognizing the table. The definition, but we'll talk about inserting a single row and how to insert multiple rows and so forth. So first thing and foremost thing is let's find a table that we could use in our example. Maybe our partial states would be a perfect one. Yeah, we'll use our partial states as a table that we could add some data to at this time. So our partial states, you want to click on here and you want to click on columns. So it's very important to understand you see the information down here, the columns. It's very important to understand what data type is. So for example, the vendor ID is an integer, the default terms ID is an integer, and the account number is an integer. So what's that mean? You can't enter a string or it will not work. You have to enter a number. Same thing with name, address, city, because if you're doing a sum on these numbers and you have a string in there, it won't work, and the database won't allow you to do it anyways, okay? So let's do this. Let me query this information over here. Oops, no, I don't want to save it. Query. So now this will be our insert statement. So the first thing of an insert statement, query the data and see what you have. Like we just did. Query it, make sure you know what's out there. That to me is very important. Okay, so now we're going to insert into the table. Now we also need to evaluate, is there any columns on here that doesn't allow us to do a null statement? And that's, to me, is very important too. So, for example, you have to know what columns allow you to enter something. So the vendor ID itself might be an automatic. So it might create it for us, which it probably does. It looks like. I don't see it on here. Usually we'll have like an auto incrementer, but I'm not seeing it, so we might have to enter it in. So we'll find out shortly. So, alright, so we'll do this. We'll type in insert into the name of your table. So what's the name of our table? Vendors, partial states. Okay. Now, there's so many different ways of doing this. But if we want to do a single row like this, you can do 2 ways. I'll show you one way and I'll show you another way. So the first way is you would insert into this. You would do a open close bracket like this, and then you put the name of the table that you want to insert. So let's say vendor name, vendor address 1, vendor address 2. We'll say we're not inserting anything in 2. We don't care about 2. Vendor city, vendor state, vendor zip code, and let's say we don't care about the rest of the stuff. We just want to insert into these rows right here. Then you would select a value. So you would do values, open close brackets, and then you put your names here. So vendor name will say Pittsburgh Steelers. Address 100 Soup. We'll call it Art Rooney Drive. City Pittsburgh. State PA. I'm using text and zip code. I'll just say this. Alright. Just like that. So now I'll highlight this, execute it, and it blew up. Vendor zip code. Did we enter the wrong zip code in? Didn't recognize it. Alright, let's see if I enter the wrong zip code in. I did. See? It's called vendor zip underscore code. Perfect. Alright, so let's try that one more time. Alright, here we go. Perfect. Filled default terms ID does not have a value. So what's that mean? That means the default terms ID is another table somewhere, and it requires to have data added to it when you do this. So this right here is a foreign key relationship that has to be in place. And that means it has a relationship with another table, and it doesn't like that we're adding something to another table. So this right here, vendor's partial states, will be considered a child. So we didn't talk about that. You have a parent and a child, and the parent table has to be added first before the child table is added. So in this case right here, it's saying default terms. Now, when I want to double check and make sure I'm not losing my line. Okay, so I'm wrong. So the default terms ID is a required field in here. So I was kind of jumping the gun thinking it was a parent-child situation. So when you're entering some values, sometimes you can't skip all of them like we did. So that's fine. Well, let me just see what that value is first. I know it's an integer, so if I query it, alright, so it has terms 1, 2, 3. I don't know what that means. So what I want to do is I'm going to appease it and do default terms ID, and then I'll give it a value. So it's an integer. I'll just say 3. So now I'll try to run it again and see if it works. Alright, so it's done up another thing, default account number. So it has to have a default account number. So you see this, these are usually, I'll show you a better way of doing it, but this is the different way. Alright, so it has these different account numbers. So I know that this probably falls back on vendors. So let me get out the vendors real quick. And they probably have account numbers, if I'm right. Yeah, well they just have default, so we'll just give it something miscellaneous. Alright, so let's go back to query. And let's say, comma, default account number. And so we'll come back down here. Oops. We'll come down here and we'll give it a account number, and I'll say 999. Perfect. Alright, so now let's try it again. See what happens. Oops. And this time it worked. So now if I go over to my table, select it, and we have Pittsburgh Steelers. Vendor ID is 0 because we didn't give it an ID. Else we'd have to give it an ID. Now you see everything that we didn't give is a null. So this is one way of doing it. If you're only entering a set of data for certain things, you would go that route. But let's say you want to enter something in for everything. Let me close these guys out. If you want to do an insert statement for everything, you can do something like this. So let's go and say insert invoices table. We have a bunch of numbers here. So what we could do here is we could do something different. We can do values. And we don't have to, you don't even have to do this on here. And then we'll just get some values too. So we'll say 115, 98, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. These are all columns. We'll give it a date, 2019, November 3rd, today. Now you notice when I give a mouse, I just give a mouse. I don't have to enter text in. 0, 0, 1, another date, we'll say 2009. We'll skip the text on it. 2009, we'll say 11, we'll say November 30th, and then we'll say no for last value. Now, what we're doing here is, let's do something real quick before we do this. So let's do select counts from invoices. Let's see what the count is first before we do this. Count is 112. So if we run this query right here and run it, it runs it. Let's check and see how many records we have. We have 113, and we do. So as you see, this is an easier way. We didn't have to enter the column names. We just entered the values that were in this order. So it was invoice ID, it was vendor ID, it was invoice number. You have to do them all in that order, and you have to enter all the data versus some data. Okay? So remember that. That is how you do that. So this right here is, let's put this here, insert into partial states with the column names and values. And oops, what to do stuff. Insert. Oops, yep. Use hashtags or comments. Insert into table with only values, but all values. And this up here is to verify the count before we insert into invoices and afterwards. Perfect. Oops, I'm going to save this, but I'm not going to post this because, well, if I post it, then you would never do it. So, 160, 103, wow. Alright, cool. Alright guys, moving on here. Let's see what we got going. Let's see how long this video has been so far. 30 minutes. Alright. So that's insert into. Now if you want to do multiple rows, I'll just give you an example of how you would do that. Insert multiple rows. So you would do something like this. If you did insert into invoices, and then you give it values like this. How do you do this instead? Values. You can do it this way too. Values. And then you can come down here. Oops, down here. And you could enter some values in. So let's say, for example, I'll copy this data right here real quick, because I don't feel like typing all this out. We'll change some stuff around. So if I did this right here, and let's say I gave it different numbers. I said 16, 99. Let's say it was November 4th, and we said we'll give it 30th, and we gave this a different number, 65. We could do that. Then what we would do is we would do a comma, and we would add another row. Okay, so let's copy this because I don't feel like coming out with numbers off the top of my head. We'll add 3 rows. We'll add it to, we'll change these around a little bit. Alright, so we'll say 17, 18, we'll do 4, 12, we'll do November 5th, which is my birthday. I'll be 21, by the way. What we won't do is we won't use a comma here because we don't want to add any more to it. Okay. As you see here, this is a little red thing. MySQL plays this game. If it doesn't see that, then it thinks there's an error message. So don't get alarmed. So what we do first is let's run our count and see what it is. I think it's 113, right? Yeah, 113. All right. Let me clear all this stuff down here. It's getting messy. All right. So now if I run this, it throws it in there. It knows it worked. And we should have a 116. 116. Congratulations, you've entered multiple rows. Pretty cool. Right? No? Alright. So that is how you do a couple different things that we talked about. What else can we show you? Update statements. Updates are very important. So let's use some of this invoice stuff that we added. So let me query invoice table real quick. Invoices. So, yeah, you want to play games with me because I don't have a null there. There we go. I think 97 was one that we just did. Yeah, so let's do this. Oh, you know what? Let's grab 118. So, where invoice ID equals 118. That was one that we just added, so this is perfect. Yeah, let's add that, so let's type it. Alright, so this verifies the data before the update. So now what we're going to do is update statement. Alright, so how we do that is we type in update the table that you want to update, which is the invoices table. And you need to set a column to equal something. So let's say set, let's change the invoice total. So here is the invoice total name, so we'll do invoice total equals something else. So we'll say, oh, there was a mistake. It's supposed to be 6,599 cents. Okay. Now here's what would happen. If I would run this, just this right here, what do you think would happen? All the invoice totals in the database would all equal 6,500. We don't want to do that. Because why? That would cause crazy problems. So what we want to do is we want to do a clause. So we're going to do where invoice ID equals 118. Why do we do that? Well, because this row equals the 118 invoice ID. So then how I can verify it is I have to come here and check. So we know this was the original amount. So if I click update, shows I updated it. I verify my data. I come here and run this query. Look at that, 6,599 cents. Congratulations, you did an update statement. So verifies the data before and after. Okay, you guys are rocking here. Alright, so we did updates. You could also do something like this too. So that's one update statement. So let's say that we wanted to do, let's copy this. We want to update with something else. Update statement with credit. So let's say we had credit for some reason. So we know someone calls when we do update plus, we have a variable, someone passes over, it says have a credit of $740. We do that. We could do this, and same one, runs it. Now the total should be what, 6,600 or 6,640 or whatever. So math is not perfect here. And okay, so my math was bad. 72,40.99. So it updates that way too. That's another way you can do it. Alright, what else? What else can I show you guys? Well, there's ways of doing subqueries, but we have not got into that yet, so I'm going to skip that aspect of it. So if you read it in a chapter, how to do an update on a subquery, let's not do it yet because we haven't talked about subqueries yet. You can do it, but I'm not going to talk about it yet until we get into that part. So let's do a delete statement. Okay, so let's get to one of our tables that we have a dupe of, our vendor's copy. So let's go back to vendor's copy. Now you notice here when I right click on this, you can select top 400. You can change that up there and say, oh, you know what, I want to do top 500. And then when I run it again, it's going to say top 500. It's just a short way of getting some data real quick. Okay, so this is our copy. We can delete any row we want to. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to delete Office Depot. Never been a big fan of Office Depot. So how will we do that? So let's go over here. And we're going to do a delete statement. So we did an insert, we did an update, and I think your homework is around insert, update, and delete. Alright, so we'll say delete from name of the table that you want to delete from. So in this case right here, it's vendor's copy, and you want to delete something specific. If we do vendor's copy, we want to find a row that we want to delete. Let me see that here. Close tab. So let's query it first. Query first. So we would do select all from vendor's copy. Okay. Run it. All right, there we go. No, I'm gonna go with Bill Jones instead. Secretary of State. So I'm gonna look for number 67 here. So I'm gonna say where vendor ID equals 67. Okay. Boom, we got a record. Perfect. Now the right way of doing this, to check if you have a record, is to count. And it should give you a value of a 1 or a 0. If it's a 1, we're good. Alright, so now we say delete from vendor's copy, where ID equals 67. So copy this, paste this here. You notice we're doing everything in our copy paste. We're not messing with our good data. Delete it. Shows that we deleted it. Let's validate it. It should be 0. It's 0. Okay, so it did work. So 1 equals data. 0 equals no data. Delete was a success. Okay, so that's how you do a delete statement, guys and ladies. Alright, what else do I have to show you? So we talked about delete statements. You can delete multiple rows. The only way you can delete multiple rows is a couple ways. You could use an in statement, or you could use a subquery. So let's go back to that vendor's copy table real quick. Run it here. So let's say we wanted to delete vendors Pacific Gas and Robbins Mobile Law. So that's 9 and 10. So how will we do that? Is let's do in 9 and comma 10. Take this out. So if we run it, we should have a count of 2 records. We do. If we delete, it would be the same thing here. So I'll do copy this. Oops. And paste it here. You know what? Let's keep this going different here. Hold on. That's a single row. Let me do this. Delete multiple rows. So copy this, guys. So let's do this. I want to keep Then we hit 9 and 10. And we'll do the same thing here. Perfect. Alright, so we know that gives us 2 rows, and if we do a delete here, it should delete it. Deleted it. Let's see what we got. Should be 0, 0. That's how you do multiple rows. Alright. That right there ends our first video on this aspect of it. So let's kind of review the homework real quick. So this is lesson 1 using an as statement. We did always, let me save this. We did compare. We did backup. We did summaries. We did create table as, drop, insert. We did a lot of stuff in 46 minutes. So, what was this deal? Man, it's acting crazy today. So, homework assignment. Page 164. Okay, so I'm going to pick one of your questions here. There's a bunch of them. First one is number 1. Insert statement that adds this row to terms table. So it has terms ID as terms ID equals 6. It has terms description equals net due 120 days. And it also has terms due days equals 120. Alright, pretty simple. So I showed you guys multiple ways. So first thing I'm going to do here is select all from terms. First of all, I'm going to use it. So I'm going to do use the name of the table schema. Then I'm going to do select all from terms. And by the way, when you guys save your homework assignment, I want you to save it as a SQL statement and submit it as a SQL statement. So for example, this would be CMPS 160. This would be mod 3. And this would be homework 1. Okay, and then you have homework 2. And you would submit that to me. Alright, so let's run this real quick. And there we go. So we have this information here. Now we want to do an insert and add something to it. So how do we do that? So we can do a couple ways. We get insert into the table terms, values, and then we give values to 3 values here. So it asks us to do 6, asks us to do net due 120 days, and it also asks us to do 120 days. That's simple, guys. Insert into terms. Oh, it didn't. I said so simple, it didn't even like it. Alright, so 6 already exists. It says duplicate entry of 6. This is the primary key. How did I not see that? Alright, I'm going to see here. That's interesting. You know why? Because my table is different than yours. I've already did this. That's why. So, this is how you would do it. So let's pretend I don't have. Actually, let's do this. Delete from, because I have this ready. Delete from terms where terms ID is in 6 and 7. Because I've already did this, guys. That's why. Alright, so I deleted it. So let me run my table again so I can run it for you. And okay, so it doesn't exist now. So now if I run it, it should work. Alright, so it did work this time. So I was saying how easy it was, but I already had the data in there. So there you go. That right there is answer number 1 to exercise on page 164. So I helped you guys do number 1. So thank you for watching video number 1, lab/lecture. And I'll talk to you guys soon. This is me signing off of almost 50 minutes. Goodbye.